This is about your ability to understand what's happening and seeing it from an entirely different perspective. And when you can do this, when you can create a new belief that you can handle any emotion that comes your way, it all starts to fall into place. Hey friends, this is Dr. Charlie Hornes. I'm so glad that you are with me today. Look, I'm going to talk about something I am super excited about. Today, we're going to talk about how to rewire your brain for resilience. This is a mind shift journey that's what thought work is. It is a mind shift journey. At least that's what it is for me. That's what it has been for me this entire time. And it has been absolutely life-changing. And every second I get to help teach this to you is just an absolute joy for me because it changed my life. And talking about resilience, that's a tough word. Part of me likes it, but part of me doesn't. It's kind of like that word tolerance. You know, when someone tells you they tolerate you, that's actually kind of an insult. It's not a nice thing, right? Resilience is kind of like that too. Or at least that's what a lot of people think. It has this, when you fall off the horse, you jump back on it kind of thing, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of thing, and never considers, someone that got kicked in the face by the horse or doesn't have bootstraps. There's a lot more, a myriad of nuance involved in this kind of stuff than just, get back up. And that's what resilience sounds like a lot of the time. But you know what? That's not what it is. So we're going to get into that. So if you're ready to learn about what real resilience is and how to rewire your brain for that, then this is the show for you. Are y'all ready? All right, let's go.
I'm Dr. Charlie Hornes, highly anxious people pleaser turned master certified professional life coach. Learning to manage my brain was so life-changing for me that I got certified so that I could teach these incredible evidence-based practices to you. Are you ready for massive change? Let's go.
So today, I'm going to show you how we can rewire your brain for resilience. So the next time life throws a curveball at you, you know exactly how to stay grounded and keep moving forward. Now, again, as I've said a million times, this takes practice. You're not going to be great at it immediately. You probably have yet to build any evidence in your evidence file about yourself that tells you you're going to be any good at this, and that's okay. That's what practice is for. This is us building evidence towards you being successful at learning thought work and managing your own brain. So before I learned about thought work and managing my mind and how to rewire my brain and use all of these things, these tools to make significant change, to experience that mind shift that I experienced that has, blown open my view of the world, of my reality, of other people, of how I can choose to react or respond. I mean, it is a life-changing thing once you start to learn this and practice it. And when you start getting good at it, it is amazing. I understand this work about resiliency because I always took negative feedback very hard. And one of the problems with negative feedback is that it depends on the person delivering it. And if you don't know how to manage your brain and you don't understand how your thoughts create your feelings and your thoughts are just responses to circumstances, then you are absolutely powerless over another person's tone of voice. What they think is constructive feedback, you might think is high levels of criticism. And so all of that is so subjective. It's very easy to misinterpret or to read or to speculate or to assume that what you're hearing back is not positive. But that's not always the case. I really understand what it's like when life can throw you curveballs and how important it is to stay grounded in who you are, what you believe, and how you think and feel about yourself. Because otherwise, you are fully giving the power away to the other person. It is entirely possible for me to decide for myself whether or not I have achieved the level of something I want to achieve. I have a brain. I can identify expectations as good as the next person. And I also know when I blow the roof off of them. So I don't need another person to tell me that. Now, if somebody wanted to, great, I welcome it. If somebody had some sort of, feedback or suggestion or criticism, great. Yeah, bring it on. There's always something to learn, right? But I no longer have to give my power away to the responses or reactions or lack of them of other people. And I no longer have to be on that emotional roller coaster of whether somebody responds to me in a way that I think is what I would like to have. Like, again, this goes back to that weird self-centered thing. I don't have the right to tell you what you should think about me. And I don't have the right to get mad at you when you think something about me that I may not want you to think. Because what you think about me is none of my business. A, I shouldn't be trying to change it. And B, I shouldn't be bending over backwards to get you to think what I want you to think. Because I can't make you do anything you don't want to do. That's the golden rule of thought work, is that once we understand we cannot make anybody do what we want them to do, we are free. It is the gateway to emotional freedom and taking the power back in your emotional life and not giving it to anybody else. Now that I've learned how to rewire my own brain to handle even the most difficult moments with calm, clarity, and control. I've learned this. And what's even better than calm, clarity, and control, this is better. Can you imagine something better than that? Yeah. When I don't have calm, clarity, and control, the window that I'm in of this sort of, suffering stage of feeling terrible is so much more narrow. It is like minutes versus days. If that's a good comparison, minutes versus days. I can be resilient in the way that I get back up. I can now get up faster. I can now spring back faster. I can now stop letting emotion that I feel I'm not in control of ruin my day. It doesn't happen anymore. And when it does, on the rare occasion, I have the tools, and I have been practicing this for so long now that I can recover very quickly. So we're going to be diving deep into thought work principles and, what I'm doing. And these are what my teachers always encourage their students to do. I'm blending a lot of the insights that I've learned from my own coaches, my teachers, and their approaches to emotional resilience, and combining them with some of my own processes and my own research. And my goal is to kind of give you real tools that you need to start this rewiring process, and start it today. So my hope is that you will leave this episode with one simple but powerful step that you can take away today to start building your own resilience. And trust me, it's a game changer. All right. So what is resilience through the lens of thought work? So resilience isn't about avoiding failure or hardship. Although a lot of folks describe it as bouncing back, right? And I'm using my quotes if you're not watching, bouncing back from stuff. It's a belief that you can handle any emotion that comes your way. So there is a sort of bounce back part of the definition for sure. But that's not the point. The point is you've done enough of this practice and this discipline and this work that it's kind of automatic now. It's not an onus on you. It just happens organically. See, that's the brilliance of thought work. I don't remember changing anything about myself. I don't remember, after all of those years of thinking something was the matter or I couldn't get it right, just like, like my peers were. I just felt like stuff was wrong with me in ways that didn't seem to be that way for others. Now, there's the first step. Did you catch it? I was speculating about everybody else getting it right and me getting it wrong. See, no, that's not okay. And it was based on my emotional life, my feelings. And so much of what was happening around me, because I didn't understand how to manage my brain, I was giving all of my power away to all of those external circumstances. So this is not about avoiding failure. This is not about learning how to get it right. This is not about changing yourself. This is not about never facing hardship, because newsflash, you're a human, and that's what we do. We face hardship every day. Somebody out there is facing a hardship every day, every second. This is about your ability to understand what's happening and seeing it from an entirely different perspective. And when you can do this, when you can create a new belief that you can handle any emotion that comes your way, it all starts to fall into place. So you never really change anything. This is an organic result of the work. It's like going to the gym for a year regularly and then waking up one morning and going, oh, I have a 6-pack. Wow. It's an organic result of the work that you do. When you do something over and over again, even if it's not tedious, like thought work is not tedious. It is simple. It is so simple. It's just not necessarily easy, especially if you're not doing it with somebody who can teach you how. The problem is that we know all of these things. I'm preaching to the choir here. I know that you're struggling with your emotional life. I know that you're not choosing this for yourself. I know that if you could fix it, you would fix it. It's not about knowing. It's about how. And nobody ever tells you how. And that's the problem. The good news is that's what I teach. I teach the how-to. If you want more how-to details, you need to run over to the website real quick and check out charliehornesscoaching.com/ flash sale because I have just dropped my holiday packages to get y'all through the holidays because I know this is a tough year. And before I launch them for real, I'm giving you this crazy bananas flash sale price because everybody needs help. And I've created an inclusive tier of pricing. So there's something there for everybody. And even if you just get masterclasses, that's fine because, the holidays are rough. And so I want to give you some of that today. And I want you to walk away with that. When it's discussed out in the world, there's this almost responsibility of behavior that is put upon the other who is being told they need to be resilient. And it can really sound like a cop-out. And it can really sound like an excuse by just telling you to, be more resilient. Learn to bounce back. Like, I'm sorry, I don't bounce. Okay. There's no bouncing involved, let alone bounce back. No, thank you. What this is a change of your perspective. It's a change of your mind, literally, to change your mind. It is a shift into a new way of seeing your reality, of seeing how your brain works, of understanding what has been behind these terrible feelings you have been having for so long, and how to finally get them to stop. And most of it is by learning to manage your brain. Again, it's very simple. It's not easy. So I never quit doing anything. I never changed anything other than having a sense of willingness and showing up. That's the key to be a student of thought work is you got to be sick and tired of feeling sick and tired. You have to have, hit your quote emotional bottom and you're just tired of it. And you may not know the how to, but you've had enough to the point you become willing to try something different because what you've been doing hasn't been working, but you don't know the how to do something else. I've got a place now where I can put everybody's resources in one storefront. What's really cool is when you use the what we call affiliate links, and I'm now becoming an affiliate for a whole bunch of different things. It's all on my website at charliehornesscoaching.com, and it's on the bonus resources page. What happens is when you purchase something off of that, a portion of it goes back to the show. And so what you're doing basically when you buy from there is you're supporting the show at no additional cost to you, which is kind of like the coolest thing ever. It's going to help us continue to create content for you and bring on incredible guests that are, they blow my mind. So I'm hoping they will blow your mind too, whether it's metaphysics and psychology and theology or high fantasy romance. You're going to find your next favorite read right there. Let's go. If we look at the actual definition of resilience, the capacity to withstand or to recover quickly from difficulties, toughness. So the semicolon, toughness. And then it has the other definition, the ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, elasticity. Now, I'm a big nerd on definitions, mainly because I think that a lot of the time we think we know what a word means, but until we really look it up, we don't. And so I have this is my dictionary. I don't even know how long I've had this thing. I've had this forever and I refuse to replace it. I don't know why. I have been underlining definitions in this my whole life. And for some reason, it's the Oxford American Dictionary. But every time I look up something in here, it's really interesting. It's always different than what I find. And I don't know if that's like a dictionary angel in here or what. But, and so I had to go to my trusty little busted up dictionary. And I was like, oh, well, I've already looked this one up because I have it totally, starred. I have stars by it. And so this one says similarly, springing back to its original form after being bent or stretched. It's different language. Springy. That sounds happy. And of a person readily recovering from shock or depression. That's very different than the Googles. Now that gives me an entirely different perspective on resilience. And when I first saw that definition preparing for today, I was a little taken aback because when we're talking about a human being bent, that's like, it reminds me, it makes me think of the phrase about, trying to break someone's will. We're not made to be bent. There's a brokenness piece that I heard when I heard that, something readily springs back from being bent. And I can't think of many humans that, quickly spring back into shape from being bent. The readiness to spring back from shock, from depression, that's pretty heavy for a definition of resilient. But as I consider it more and more, it's totally appropriate for thought work because that is what we do with thought work. So this isn't pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. This isn't superficial bullshit. And so you can, through thought work, absolutely quickly spring back from being bent because there's no bending in the first place when you know about thought work. It reminds me of the spoon scene in The Matrix where Neo is trying to bend the spoon. He sees the kid and the kid is doing like crazy mind work and Neo can't figure out how to bend the spoon. And the kid says, well, the trick is there is no spoon. That's the trick with mind work. That's the trick with managing your brain. Having a managed mind is to understand, hey, there is no spoon. There is no outside force that is actually trying to break my will or bend me. That is my thoughts interpretation of whatever's happening around me. And if I allow the first thought that jumps into my brain, which is typically negative because, that's how your brain works to keep you safe. It's trying to help you in the worst way possible. When those thoughts immediately jump into our brains, we often run with them automatically. The first thought is, oh, they must not like me, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't know that. And even if they do, it's just their opinion. It's their own thoughts. It's their own story that they're telling themselves. It's their own inner dialogue. It's their own narrative that they're telling themselves. We all live in our own story, all of us, which means you can rewrite it. Yeah. That's that first masterclass that I'm dropping right now is rewriting your inner dialogue. The dialogue that is just on loop in your head. None of that's true. You don't have to listen to any of that, and you can change it at any time. There's no spoon. It's not a thing. So I want you to look, as we talk about rewiring our brain for resiliency, I want you to look at this through the lens of this definition. Springing back after being bent. Well, how is that possible? Well, we don't let being bent be a thing because it's entirely in our power and our control. whether or not somebody can influence our mental will. Physical, whole nother story. Run. That's my answer. Run. But when we're talking about the interpersonal situations out there in the world, as we get ready for the holidays, as folks start heading home, sitting at those tables, and, we don't choose our families, but somehow we all end up choosing to share meals with them on the big holidays, which is lovely. You may or may not want to be there, and it's different for everybody. And as you get ready for this season that's coming, and the season that's very difficult for many people, we have to start to understand that we are the ones giving the power away when we let other people's thoughts, feelings, actions, words, when we let those things disturb us, when we let them bend us. And once you understand how to rewire your brain for resiliency, then either the bend doesn't happen at all because there's no spoon. I was so moved when I really considered, and this is why I always look words up. They always give me this deeper level of understanding. And then I can just, you watch me, I could just like spin out into the metaphysics of what does this mean? And how can I parse it out? It reminds me of my Hebrew and Greek classes where I would just like sit there and try to like figure out the word and what did it mean. So the idea of learning about emotional resiliency is not about fixing the external world around us, nor is it about fixing the negative emotions within us. Both of those are putting the onus where it doesn't belong, putting the responsibility where it doesn't belong. Both of those things can make you feel terrible about who you are because you feel like you're not getting it right. When you can understand that you can control how you react to the thing, that's the key. When you can take back control, when you can identify what's coming out of other people's mouths doesn't matter as far as how it affects you and how you should feel about yourself. When you realize that it doesn't matter what they say, it has absolutely no bearing on you and your life and your self-worth and your self-love and your respect for yourself and your confidence and the knowledge of the incredible and amazing person you already are right now. None of that has anything to do with you and everything to do with the story that's running, the narrative, the inner dialogue that's happening in the other person's brain. And once you let go of that control, once you understand, even if it's in a negative way, that you're not going to be able to avoid your negative emotions and you're not going to be able to change everything around you. You can't change other people and you surely often cannot change your circumstances. But what you can control is how you choose to react to such things. Or even better, how you begin to respond to them, how you begin to become aware of them, how you begin to start to see yourself in the moment and watch the other person in the moment and go, wow, there's an emotional child right there. That's why I talk all the time about now, if you want to come at me in a way that used to paralyze me in the past, you may be met with a pretty significant belly laugh from me. Because now it's almost funny, like funny, comical when you understand that other people's narratives running in their brains and the lens that they're filtering it through, and how whatever their perspective on you is being filtered like coffee through that. And it's giving them what they want to think about whatever. But often it's just auto thoughts, Oh, I don't like that person, or, oh, I like that person. Who decides how we like one another? Science is still not quite figured out what it is that makes us like each other. Because if we could figure that out, then, nobody needs marketing anymore. We just, do that. No, it doesn't work that way. You don't know what's going on in their brains. So it's all made up. And once you get that, you can start laughing too, because it's pretty comical when you really get to the place of the mind shift that I am hoping to take you on the journey towards. I used to think this word meant strong and powerful, powering through difficulty. But that's not it at all. The truth is, it's more about how we manage our thoughts and how we see them for what they are and how we decide how we're going to respond. That's the point. But how exactly do you start to rewire your brain to do this? Well, let me break it down for you a little bit, okay? So we're going to talk just briefly about the science of rewiring your brain for resiliency. We talked about this before. The word is neuroplasticity. And, the science is in the neuroscience world. Again, I'm not a neuroscience scientist, but gosh, am I a nerd about it. So I just geek out all the time. Your brain is constantly making these new neuro connections based on what you repeatedly think, feel, and what you do. So imagine it is like walking a path back and forth in the woods. And over time, you start to wear that path down. It becomes a pathway, right? There's a story, and I don't know where it comes from. And so I can't give it credit. If anybody knows this story, let me know. But apparently there was a school being built. And instead of laying down the sidewalks, maybe the president of the school said, let's put the grass down or whatever, and then give it some time. And what they were able to see was the paths the students were automatically taking naturally to get to places. And that's where they laid the sidewalks. Your brain is the same. As you repeatedly think, feel, and do things, you start to carve those pathways. So this means that your brain is literally wiring your neurons together. And it's wiring for one of two ways, either for resiliency or for reactivity. Those are your only options. You're either going to be resilient, as in there is no spoon, right? I'm not going to bounce back from being bent because there's no bending, or reactivity, which is living in fight or flight constantly, letting your emotions run the show, letting other people seemingly have entire control of your emotional life. That doesn't sound like a good time, does it? But here's the good news, neuroplasticity. You can rewire your brain. You can rewire your brain because it's not set in stone. It's a living thing. It changes. That's the neuroplasticity. So if I've created a well-worn path in one direction, I can recreate a well-worn path in a different direction. It just takes practice, or walking the path back and forth, right? That's the discipline. So thought work taps into this process to help you create these brand new patterns of thought or new pathways that you're walking back and forth. You have to start to think about what thought better serves you when you're feeling that visceral trigger or pushed button. If a thought doesn't serve you, as in creates the feeling within you that you would prefer to have, then it needs to be replaced with a thought that does serve you. We're not trying to fix your emotions. You can't fix your emotions. This is to build the capacity for you to be able to experience every emotion out there. Because at any time, any emotion can come at you. Because we're human. You can walk out the door and the good Lord knows what could happen. So you have got to learn to have the capacity. You have got to raise your threshold of dealing with any emotion that could come your way and not make it mean something terrible about who you are. And if you expect to never have to experience negative feeling, you're going to be sorely disappointed because at any time, it's 50-50. It can go either way. The most incredible stuff is going to happen in your life, but there's also opportunity for devastating things. As much amazing stuff as you can imagine happening, there has to be that counterbalance. Otherwise, the amazing stuff doesn't mean anything. It's not a thing unless its opposite is there. So we have to accept that life is 50-50. But as you build the capacity with this new work to feel all of the emotions out there and not allow it to mean anything about yourself, especially anything terrible. See, that's the work. That's how you stop feeling terrible. If you heard the episode where Mayor Mary and I were talking and she starts talking about being of service, that's the way to get out of your head. And a lot of people do not understand that even if you're sitting around beating yourself up, it's still thinking about yourself, which is entirely self-centered. And when we think of self-centered, we think of arrogance or, conceited or whatever. No, more often than not, self-centered are people that spend all day thinking about themselves and it's bad. But who are you helping in the world when you do that? So when you start to feel all of the emotions that are possible out there, and you start to understand how amazing you are as the unique creature that you are, just as you are, then you get to take power back and you get to stop telling yourself that all the emotions you're feeling are meant to say something terrible about who you are, because that's not true. You don't have to do that anymore. And, I've rewired my brain to deal with these types of challenges and changes that come at us that bring pretty strong physiological responses to buttons getting pushed and all that stuff. We can learn to do that without the spiraling. It's the coolest thing I've heard. How do you start rewiring your brain for resilience? Well, it really starts with one simple but extremely powerful step. So we're going to go through some of this real quick. The first step of rewiring your brain is becoming aware that you're having automatic thoughts. That's the biggest hurdle. When you start to feel, yep, that's a clue And instead of feeling yuck and buying into whatever the thought is that's running over and over in your head, I'm such a jerk, I'm such a blah, 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 whatever. I mean, it's different for everybody, but if you can start to notice, that's it. You have to become aware of the automatic thoughts so that you can then identify them. So those knee-jerk reactions that, they seem to come out of nowhere, or you feel like you're out of control emotionally, it's not that you're out of control. It's that you're having a thought that's pretty awful about yourself. And you may think it stems from outside circumstances, but it doesn't. It's just word salad in your brain. This new training, this new understanding of the somatic methodology of mental health practices, it is so true because we have to start with our body because that's where we feel. And it's the feeling that is sort of the gateway to understanding what's behind feeling terrible. Because if you didn't feel terrible, you wouldn't have a problem, right? I mean, I could think terrible things in my brain all day long, but if I don't feel bad about myself, who cares? So it's about our feeling. That's what it comes down to. How do you feel about yourself? So once you can identify these automatic thoughts, these knee-jerk reactions, and these awful feelings, then you can start to challenge them. A lot of our automatic thoughts come from socialization. So what do I mean by that? I mean, we're taught since we're born the quote unquote expectation society has of us. Just take the simple girls, baby girls get bought a bunch of pink crap when they're born or at the baby shower. And baby boys get a bunch of blue crap when the baby shower is happening because we're socialized to put boys in blue. So we are taught that if that's not how things go, we should be judgmental because that person is not fitting into the expectation of the societal wishes. And often, if we're not living up to some, made up social expectation, we immediately feel bad about ourselves. And we've never really questioned these things. Where do they come from? Who made them up? But when you start to challenge, when you start to push back, when you start to resist and question these thoughts, that is when you begin to gain the power over how you respond to them. Let's say let's go back to the holidays since that's coming up. Say your family, you're at that dinner table and one of your family members starts pushing your buttons and your immediate thought is, they're doing this on purpose to annoy me, or they've never respected me in this family. But is that true? What evidence do you have that someone is purposefully trying to annoy you? Maybe they're just saying what they think is the right thing to say, and you happen to think the right thing is something different. Well, some things are probably much better to say than others, for sure. And some things that get said probably need to be called out on. But we also don't have to feel bad about that. If that's your decision and that's how you want to respond, great. You don't have to go to bed and ruminate over it over and over and over again. It's not worth it, right? You're probably not going to change Uncle Cardboard Box's mind anyway. So keep your peace of mind. However, do you have evidence that these folks are doing it on purpose or that they don't respect you? This is about how you feel about you, right? If you believe they're trying to annoy you, there's a connotation of dislike or disrespect. Is that really what you think your family, you're sitting around having a holiday meal is doing intentionally? Sometimes they are, sure. But how long has your brain been latching on to that thought? How many years has your brain been latching on to the thought And every time you sit with this, this member of the family or whomever it is, or whoever is passive aggressive or whoever says this, that, and the other, how long have you connected the neural pathway between, what this person says and this thought that I have, which creates this terrible feeling that I have? For how long have you been telling yourself that? And ask yourself, is it true? Is it true? Can it be proven in a court of law? But once you start to become aware of your automatic thoughts, and once you begin to challenge them, that's when the shift in perspective really starts to happen. So here's something you can do right now. Think about a recent situation that made you feel reactive or upset. Write down the thought that you had in the moment. Think about how you felt. If you focus on the feeling, then usually the thought that you had that created that feeling, you can remember it then. And then try to pinpoint what the thought was in the moment. Once you've grabbed the thought, ask yourself, is this thought really true? Is this thought serving me? Is this thought harming me? And then ask yourself this, what if you didn't believe this thought? How would you feel instead? So this is just the beginning. Take a look at those steps that we went over. And I've also created a sort of PDF interactive workbook thing you can go through and practice some of this. It's in the show notes. You'll see a link down there that has all of the resources. Click on that. And also don't forget, I have my Amazon storefront. So I'm just putting all of the resources in one place there. So you can find everything in a curated list for each show. Plus a whole bunch of other nonsense that I think is fun, and a lot of fun stuff that my guests have been sharing that they just love. They just think that's fun too. You can kind of get to know them a little better. So just remember, when you start to challenge your thoughts, you open the door to the potential to rewire your thoughts, rewire your brain towards health. And the more you do this, the more you practice it, the more you fall on your face at it, it's good. Because the more resilient you become, you start to spring back quickly from being bent, from shock. Yeah, like I hear that and I think that's fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Are you saying if I become resilient, if I rewire my brain for resilience, I can stop or I can bounce back quickly from shock, which is fight, flight, freeze, or fawn? Yes, you can. I did. So this is just scratching the surface. And in my upcoming holiday program, we'll be diving much deeper into this, rewiring your brain step by step so that you're not just surviving the holidays, but you are thriving through them. This is the foundational skill of emotional resilience. This is a pretty significant key to learning thought work. And if you're ready to take the next step, my full course on emotional resiliency and emotional confidence mastery, those will be coming out in the new year. You'll get a taste of that if you grab my masterclasses that are out right now. If you still don't know which path would work for you, take my quiz. Find that at charliehornisscoaching.com/quiz. Take that, and that will give you some extremely detailed results. And then it will let you know if any of my programs might be even more helpful to you. And, for now, start challenging those automatic thoughts. Grab the guide, start practicing, and you're going to begin to rewire your brain today, right now. Remember, resiliency isn't something you're born with. It's something that you create. I'm excited to get you started on this journey. This is just the beginning. My friend, you've got this. All right, I'll talk to you soon.